So I don't know if you recall, but not that long ago, maybe a long time ago, I'm not sure when this video is going to be out, but I picked up a bunch of random stuff from AliExpress, some retro gaming stuff and related. And one of them was this game console. It's just a handheld with an ARM chip, so it's an emulation device. And as you can see, it's got 2 thumbsticks, 4-face button, start, select, menu, D-pad. And then if we take a look at the back, it's also got some shoulder buttons. And I saw this, I thought it was pretty neat, so I figured let me pick it up and mess around with it and see what it is. So I'm going to go ahead and open this up and we'll see what it comes with. Had this little protective pad kind of, although might have been better to have a foam insert to keep this from flopping around too much, but what do you expect? So let me get a better angle here. There, I think that should be a little bit better. Oh, this is in there. Holy crap. All right, so it comes with a USB Type-C power cable. No brick, but that's fine. Some sort of qualified certificate. If I could get the camera to focus on it there. So it passed quality control. Oh, it's from April of this year. Cool. And then, of course, a manual because, you know, we don't need that right now, though. So initial impression is the plastic is actually kind of like a hard, durable plastic. It doesn't feel cheap or flimsy. There's no flex to it or anything like that. There is a screen protector on here, although I think it's just one of those that protect it during shipping. It's not an actual screen protector. Although if I could get this peeled off, it would be. Got the little warranty sticker there, so you can't disassemble it, but of course, I don't care. It's got several ports, headphone, power, and OTG. I believe you can hook up a USB controller to this and have 2 players, although not really sure it's going to be very fun, but who knows. It's possible this may do other things too. Maybe there's video out. I doubt it. Doesn't say anything about it, so probably not. Let's go ahead and see if we can turn it on. Power button, there's this R button, I'm guessing reset. Volume rocker. Let's see if there's any juice in here. Oh, that's disappointing. I'm going to have to get this thing plugged in. Give me a second. All right, it is charging, and there's a LED there. Well, let's see if it'll turn on. Or does the battery have to be fully charged first? So I've had a chance to charge it and even play with it for a little bit. And as you can see here, this is an Android-based console. Not sure which version, but these are usually going to be based off of anywhere from version 4.4 up to version 9. So don't expect anything too recent. We'll wait for this to boot up and we will continue on. There, that's a little bit better. So it went straight to the Game Boy Advance screen, which is odd because it usually doesn't do that. Usually it just starts off at, where is it at here? Usually this is where it starts off, but it is what it is, so I'm not going to complain too much. But as you can see, it's got various different consoles. I'm not exactly sure what launcher this is running or which emulation front end. It doesn't seem to be running Emulation Station, RetroArch, Dig, etc., etc. I mean, it's possible it is. Could be some sort of custom interface. It could also just be a custom launcher. I'm not sure. But as you can see, navigation is kind of odd. If I want to go to the right, I have to push left. So it's almost like you're swiping. So you've got MAME, arcade, obviously you've got Nintendo, Super Famicom, Super NES, you've got PSP, PlayStation, Genesis, Mega Drive, 64, you've got Game Boy Color, Game Boy Advance. I'm not sure why those two are separated, but they are. You also have a listing of all the games, as well as favorites, and we'll get to that in a bit. Also, last played. So we'll go ahead and we'll just start with Nintendo. And as you can see here, it's got all of these this listing here, and this is supposed to show a preview, either as a static image or a video, but it doesn't always do that for every game. In fact, right now, see, there we go. It's not there for every game. I'm not sure why, but it is what it is. So you move up and down. You can also use the L1 and R1 buttons to scroll up and down. Unfortunately, you cannot go backwards from the first position, nor from the very end. You can't scroll forward. So to get to the end of the list and want to roll back around, you're doing it the hard way, unfortunately. So, but I think that's also kind of why they have that favorites list, because there are a ton of games on here, and yeah, it can be really frustrating. So, I mean, the selection of games are going to be your typical ones. They probably just grab some ROM packs online, dumped them on here, and that's it. It does have the SD card, well, TF card, but, you know, same thing. They don't want to pay for the license for the SD branding, so I get that. Oddly enough, though, I did not see any Mario games on here, which means that they're probably trying to avoid the ire of Nintendo. But then when you start to get into it, Excite Bike is Nintendo IP. You also have, where was it? Well, it's not going to be in this list necessarily, but there's Donkey Kong. I think Donkey Kong Country was on here as well. Those are Nintendo IPs, so I'm not sure if they think Nintendo only goes after you if it's Mario or not, but, you know, it is what it is. So like I said, the game selection is your typical ones, but that also means that there are going to be multiple copies of the same game. For example, if we back out and go to the arcade, Street Fighter 2, and I don't know where it's at, but there was a page where it literally had like 20 versions of Street Fighter 2, although the naming convention on them was a little bit different. So my guess is that they might be different ROM versions, you know, because of the fact that these are released on ROMs. In order to create patches, they would just have to issue a new ROM. So that's probably what happened. I can't say that for sure, though. Here we go. Street Fighter 2 Championship Edition, another Championship Edition, another Championship Edition with, it's a test version. Here's another Championship Edition. So, yeah, there's definitely duplicates on here, and the same goes for NES and all the other consoles. Some of them are just ROM hacks. Some are just mislabeled in general. You know, it's not a surprise, let's be honest here. The other thing that I noticed is that these are not in alphanumeric order. You know, you've got Batman, Castlevania, and then Rockman, and then back to Castlevania again. So that's probably another reason why there's the favorites menu, so you can just pick what you want and just access it from an easy-to-get menu. In fact, I went and marked off some favorites. The other odd thing is once you make a game a favorite, it disappears from that console list, and it only appears here. So I'm not sure why they did it that way, but they did. But yeah, because of the fact that there are so many duplicates, their claim to having almost 10,000 games isn't really accurate. But again, that's par for the course with these types of consoles. The other thing I notice is that while there are, 980 arcade games, 1,500 Nintendo games, almost 3,000 Super Nintendo games, there's only 43 PSP games. Whether you got PlayStation, there's 52 games, only about 400 Mega Drive games, 128 64 games, almost 2,000 Game Boy Color games, exactly 2,000 Game Boy games, 150 Game Boy Advance games. So yeah, so almost 10,000 games, just too shy of it. What, they couldn't put 2 more copies of Street Fighter 2 on there? And I'm also surprised that they didn't include anything like the TurboGrafx 16, the Atari Jaguar. Maybe it didn't perform well, although it's kind of odd that they aren't on there. And I can't see it being a performance issue because pretty much all the games I tried, Nintendo, Super Nintendo, basically all the 8-bit, 16-bit games, they run just fine on here. No lag, no sound issues or anything like that. But surprisingly, the PSP games that I tried, the N64 games I tried, and the PlayStation games I tried also had no issues. So it should be more than capable of handling TurboGrafx 16. The Jaguar might be a little bit more advanced of a system. I believe it had 2 processors in it. So maybe that's an issue. I'm not sure. The other thing is because of the fact it can handle PlayStation, I'm also surprised it can't do Saturn. But again, that had 2 CPUs in it. So that could be a limitation. Once again, the specs are that it has a 3.5-inch screen, 640 by 480. It's not a bad screen. I left the screen protector on just to protect it a little bit, so it might be a little bit reflective. But it's not a bad screen. And I just realized the ISO was really dark. What's going on? That's a lot better. So it's not a bad screen. It's going to be good enough for all of these games because these are all either going to be 240p or 480i based games. Maybe a couple 480p, but I don't expect any of those really on there. But it's got a Rock chip, 1.5 gigahertz, Mali G31 video, MP2. I'm not sure what they mean by that. Shows RAM memory 1 gig, 8 gigs. So I'm guessing it's got 1 gig of RAM and 8 gigs of built-in storage. And then the CF card, I believe it's a 64 gig one. It can do up to 128. They call it open source Linux system. It's Android. We saw that already. So one speaker, it says it's stereo, but it's not. And it does have a USB Type-C charging port as well as OTG. That's you can hook up a second controller, but this does not appear to have video out. So I'm not sure who's going to want to play 2-player games on this small screen. And I did try a USB-C to HDMI adapter. It did not work. So let's go ahead and test some games so you can see how the performance is, at least as best as I can show you. Oh, that's the other thing. These are the turbo buttons. These are the regular buttons. So BA, Turbo B, Turbo A. Kind of an odd combination. But, you know, it is what it is, so. It's a little hard to play in the camera because there's a slight lag. So gameplay may not be great. But as you can see, performance is really good. It's going to be your typical, you know, Nintendo emulation. So let's go ahead and try something a little bit more challenging. Oh, see, here's the other thing. They have Ocarina of Time on here. You want to draw Nintendo's attention, throw that game on there. But, you know, it is what it is. So now this is, I did not play this yet on here. In fact, it might not even be loading. Oh, it is. It's just really... But I'm not going to necessarily test the performance. Also, it's going to be difficult to play because of the controller layout. And it does have the thumbsticks and everything, but whatever. Here, I'll skip to a gameplay section. Alright, I forgot how long the intro was to Ocarina of Time. So the performance isn't perfect, but then again, I believe it only ran at like 20 frames per second on the actual N64 hardware anyway. And as you can see, you know, the thumbstick controls Link like the thumbstick did on the 64 controller, but I don't know which buttons control the camera. So there's that. Let's back out of here and try another game. Ridge Racer 64. I did try that off camera. That one played fine. We'll try some Sonic. That is higher pitched. Sorry for bumping the cam. That is higher pitched, but that's fine. So I'm not sure why the Sega intro itself is very loud. And again, playing on camera is difficult. But as you can see, performance is right where it should be. Did I have... Could have sworn I saved a PS2 game on here, because I don't want to have to go through that list. But maybe I didn't. So for this part, the audio was dropped from the original footage, so voiceover time it is. But anyways, as we can see, PS1 games, at the very least, Ridge Racer Type 4 seems to work fine. So let's just go ahead and move on to disassembly. So there are 6 screws in the back. 2 of them hidden behind the bumper grip parts. in mind that 2 screws are longer than the rest. The other 4 are the same length. And now once we remove the last 2 screws, we can separate the 2 halves of the shells. But be careful because there are 2 cables, one for the speaker, one for the battery. Interestingly enough though, they're using connectors as opposed to just being soldered on like these devices usually have, so good job there. Alright, so with that half out of the way, we can see some of the chips. I'll also superimpose some photos of them for those that like to see what kind of chips are on there. And there are also 3 additional connectors we need to remove, one for the display and 2 each for the thumbsticks, although I almost forgot to remove them when I tried to remove the PCB. And also, as you can see, 2 screws. And the rest of the video should have the original audio, so we'll just continue as normal. And then here's the other side. It just has all the different buttons and everything, and the contacts. That's really all there is to it on this side. Not much, just a bunch of passive components, test points. And then, of course, you've got thumbsticks, which are the Switch Joy-Cons. I believe they're from the Switch Lite. Looks like some of the foam padding might have ripped a little bit, but that's not a big deal. I believe they're just there for some light bleed, because these do light up. So, and that's basically it. You've got the LCD driver board here. Pretty basic. We get it back together and we can wrap this up. So all in all, not bad for $55. So it's on the pricier side of things compared to like the little cheap Famiclone handhelds that are out there, but definitely a lot less expensive than some of the more expensive ones like your Ambernicks and your Powkitties. Speaking of which, apparently this is a clone of the Powkitty RGB20S, and I believe I've seen some Ambernick systems that were very similar in design too. So who knows? SZDiier might just be, an OEM that makes them, and these companies are putting their logos on them, or these guys actually did clone it. Hard to say. But as I said before, the build quality is really good. I like the quality of the plastic that they're using. The display, like I said, is good. The buttons feel good. They have a good feel to them. They're not mushy. They're not hard to press down. I really can't complain, I guess. The quality of the plastic is really what impressed me. It's equivalent to like a good quality replacement Game Boy shell. So now, in terms of whether you should get this or not, because of the fact that these guys don't go by the books in terms of what they include on here, very legally gray area, I can't recommend it for that reason. However, because you do have the CF card in here, you can always buy this and remove everything from here and put your own legally acquired ROMs, and then you'd have a good console, to play, and then would be completely legitimate. The other thing that I might test in the future is to see if I can put other consoles on here, like the TurboGrafx 16, and see if it'll work on there. Not sure if it will or not, because I can't actually get into any kind of menu on here. I can get into the base menu here, where I can set the language, see the battery level, brightness, date, time. I can do a test of the buttons, and there's the system info, and I can reset it. That's it. You cannot configure the buttons. You cannot configure any emulator settings. Some of the games are configured to have scan lines. Some are configured to have this like blurring effect to try to blend the pixels a little bit. I think it's like SA2X mode or something like that on some emulators. So it's very disappointing you can't configure anything on here. And I did check the CF card to see if there were any settings on there, and there are none. So But like I said, overall, if you don't care about any of that stuff, it's not a bad little handheld to pick up. So what do you guys think? Do you guys have one of these or a version of it? You know, maybe one of the other brands, like I said, Pow Kitty, Ambernick. Leave some comments below. Let me know what you think. And that'll be it. Thanks all for watching. I'll catch you later.